My name is Jim Thompson, and I'm 58 years old. I can't believe this happened to me. If it hadn't, I never would have believed it. I started with industrial manufacturing when the company was just 5 years old. Started by Roger Simon, a true old-fashioned engineer. Roger and I hit it off, and he even mentored me. We became good friends, both on and off the job, even taking our families on outings together and dinners. Over the years, I invented a lot of industrial manufacturing's products, and the company really grew. It was practically a Fortune 100 company. Everything was perfect until Roger decided it was time to retire and enjoy life. Roger had a son, Terrence, and over the years, Roger had spent millions on various startups for Terrence. They all failed. As long as Roger was willing to fund him, Terrence really had no interest in his father's company. That is until about a year before Roger retired, as he spoke about retirement frequently. Terrence must have thought this was his big chance, and thus talked his father into letting him run the company. So he handed the reins to his son Terrence, whom he thought knew the business really well. At least that's what Terrence had led him to believe, and asked me to help mentor him. For the first 2 years, everything went well because Roger, even though retired and enjoying life, still kept an eye on things and would advise Terrence along with me mentoring him daily. Then it happened. While on the 9th hole of his favorite golf course, he had a massive stroke and died. Just like that, I lost a good friend and mentor. My only comfort was he died doing what he loved. Things were chaotic for the next few months, as expected when dealing with a major loss and grief. Now with Terrence at the helm, things started to change for the worse, and for the life of me, I don't understand why. He no longer had his father to steer the course, and he also decided then he no longer wanted or needed my mentorship, even though I was available. Terrence was not good at running a company, which was obvious from all his failed startups, and especially one this size. Although he had a master's degree in business and finance from a top university, it didn't seem to help. Turns out paper degrees without real-world experience are fairly useless, at least in this case. It's as if he felt he knew more than anyone around him and ignored any advice given. It wasn't long before the company started losing clients and hemorrhaging money like crazy. Layoffs started. The work atmosphere turned from joyful and pleasant to just plain bleak. This went on for almost 3 years after Roger's passing to where we are today. Me terminated, and the company is in bankruptcy and reorganization. That's when I found out the pension money was all gone, and not just mine, but everyone in the company. How could this have happened? Terrence said it was all tied into the BK and restructuring. So now, a year later, my savings are gone, but at least I was smart enough to pay off my home. I can't find any steady work, no matter how hard I try. I couldn't even get menial jobs, thanks to those damn online application processes. Apparently, they only look at keywords and are quick to reject you. Gone are the days of face-to-face meetings, where a person can get to know you. If I could get in front of someone, I know I'd nail the job, any job, even a menial one. Thanks, Internet. I'm sure many of you have faced the same problem. I basically became a day laborer, taking anything I could get. Thankfully for Medicaid, food stamps, and some odd jobs I was able to get, I am surviving, but barely. Not where I expected to be at this point in life. I stopped for a beer after one of the odd jobs, hot and sweaty. While there, I ran into Harry, the former head counsel for the company. He took one look at me and said, "Boy, that must be some project you have going on," looking at me all dirty and such. He said, "At least Roger left you well taken care of." I looked at him in sheer puzzlement. I said, "What do you mean?" I was left with no pension, nobody will hire me. My savings ran out, and I'm on Medicaid and food stamps, picking up any odd job I can to get by. That's where I just came from, and why I look like this. His expression was utter shock and surprise. He said, "How could that be? Roger put all the patents for the projects you designed in your name. You should be getting tons of royalties." Now it was my turn to look stunned. What? I didn't know. No one ever said anything. He said, I guess Roger wanted to make sure his best friend was taken care of. He was reinvesting those profits in your profit-sharing plan. I know he planned on telling you because we talked about it. I'm guessing because of his sudden passing, he never got the chance to. Does Terrence know about this? I'm sure he does, and frankly, I'm surprised he didn't tell you himself. You see, the stuff you created is licensed to the company and renewed every 5 years. In fact, renewal should have come up about a year after Roger's death. Terrence had to have known and should have contacted you for the renewal. If he didn't, he's using them illegally. So I made an appointment for the next day to sit down with Harry and go over everything. Turns out, since I do own all the patents, the royalties alone are millions of dollars per year. So I'm not really broke, but a millionaire and didn't know it. All this time I'm struggling while Terrence is sitting pretty. I confronted Terrence. He looked shocked. Either he didn't know or was surprised I found out. He told me his dad rolled those back into the company a while ago, and they were owned by the company. I thought, wait, how would he know? He hasn't had any involvement in the company till recently. I took this to Harry, who explained that was not possible. We ended up filing a lawsuit naming the company and Terrence as defendants. During discovery, the judge ordered forensic accounting of the company's books. It seems Terrence was using the company as his personal bank and managed to rack up some pretty major gambling debts to some very unpleasant people. In the end, he was found guilty and sentenced to 5 years in prison. All his assets were seized and all his bank accounts frozen, even the foreign ones. All his money was confiscated, possessions sold, and restitution made to all the people who lost their pensions. This helped a lot of people who had counted on their retirement money. Industrial manufacturing was no more. Me, I still had all my patents, and part of the money reclaimed went to me after the pensions were restored. I started my own company, Phoenix Manufacturing, with the money I received. Harry became our head counsel. Since all the patents are in my name, I was able to start up manufacturing rather quickly, and since I knew a lot of our old clients, they were more than happy to start using us. It's been 2 years now. We have grown to the size industrial manufacturing was when they were at their peak. Pretty much all of the workers quickly joined us, which really helped us get up to speed so quickly. Just like back in the day, everyone is happy and spirits are high here. Terrence has 3 more years to go in prison. Although most people would say to just punt him if he wants, he will have a job waiting for him here. Janitorial, he will start at the bottom, but if he really wants to learn, I will help mentor him. I'm doing this not for him, but because of the respect I have for Roger and our friendship. Roger did look out after me. Unfortunately, he never got the opportunity to sit and tell me about it. Life takes some unexpected turns, and it's important you make the most of it each and every day. Although betrayal is horrible, letting it fester and eat at you inside is worse. If you have gone through anything like this, feel free to share your story. Who knows, maybe the insight will help others.
Ever feel like you've built something solid, something that you thought would really last? You put in the years, the effort, maybe unwavering loyalty, then bang, in an instant the foundation just crumbles.
Yeah, it happens. We've got a story today that really takes that feeling, that unexpected loss, and peels back layers you almost won't believe.
Right. Today we're doing a deep dive into the personal story of a man named Jim Thompson.
That's right. 35 years he spent at one company, industrial manufacturing.
Yeah.
It was his world.
35 years.
Wow. And his story, it's not just about, a career ending abruptly. It's this incredible look at dedication that gets blindsided, the shockwaves from leadership changes nobody saw coming.
And some really surprising twists that just completely redefine a person's life.
Exactly.
And this isn't just like a sad story. It's actually packed with financial surprises, maybe some crucial lessons about recognizing your own value, even when it's not obvious at first.
Definitely. Our goal here is to really unpack Jim's whole experience, pull out those key insights that aren't maybe on the surface.
Yeah, and understand how his long commitment took such a dramatic, unexpected detour, hopefully giving you some real aha moments along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's start. 35 years. That is an incredible amount of time at one place, industrial manufacturing. What was it like when Jim first started there? What was the scene?
Well, Jim joined when industrial manufacturing was still pretty young itself, maybe just 5 years old. It was founded by a guy named Roger Simon.
Okay.
And what really comes through in Jim's account is the connection he built with Roger. It wasn't just, boss and employee.
Yeah.
No, it grew into this really strong mentorship and actually a genuine friendship.
Really?
Yeah, they spent time together outside work, families got involved. It sounds like a really close bond.
That paints a picture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about the personal side, right? Jim's work was pretty fundamental to the company.
Oh, absolutely fundamental. His inventions, over all those years, they were crucial. They directly fueled the company's growth and success.
So he was inventing things that made the company money.
Big time. He helped transform them into a major player, comparable to maybe a Fortune 100 company in scale eventually.
Yep.
His value was just deeply tied into their success.
Okay, so you've got this long period, things are growing, strong relationship at the top between Roger and Jim. Then, well, the inevitable happens. Roger decides it's time to retire.
Right. A natural transition, you'd think. But this seems to be where the unexpected chain of events really kicked off.
How so?
Well, Roger's retirement plan involved his son, Terrence, taking over. Now, Terrence's background was different.
Different how?
He had a business degree, sure, but also a string of failed startups that his dad had funded.
Not a great track record then.
Not really. And interestingly, his serious interest in this company, industrial manufacturing, seemed to pop up right around when Roger started talking retirement.
Maybe he saw an opportunity rather than having a passion for the business itself.
That's sort of the suggestion, yeah. It felt maybe more opportunistic.
So Roger, probably wanting to keep it in the family, puts Terrence in charge. But it sounds like he tried to help him succeed, asked Jim to mentor him.
He did. That was the plan. Roger asked Jim to guide Terrence, give him the benefit of his experience. And for a couple of years, it seemed to be working. Sort of.
Yeah.
Roger was still around for advice. Jim was doing his best to mentor Terrence, share insights.
But there's a but coming, I feel.
There is. A really pivotal event happened, something that just changed the whole direction.
Which was?
Roger passed away. Suddenly.
Oh, wow. That's, a stark reminder, isn't it?
Yeah.
Life's unpredictable. And for Jim, that must have been huge. Losing a mentor, a friend.
And a key figure professionally, absolutely. And tragically, Roger's death had immediate effects on the company leadership.
How so?
Well, despite Jim being ready and willing to keep mentoring, Terrence basically just shut him down. Abruptly rejected his guidance. Jim couldn't figure out why.
Terrence just didn't want the help anymore?
Apparently not. And looking back, that decision seems incredibly consequential, hugely so.
Yeah. It really does. You mentioned Terrence's past business failures.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that should have been a bit of a red flag.
Perhaps.
And being unwilling to learn from someone with decades of success inside his own father's company, it seems, baffling.
It does seem baffling. And Jim's account describes what happened next. A rapid decline.
Under Terrence?
Under Terrence's leadership, yeah. Key clients started leaving. Financial losses started piling up.
Whoa.
And the work environment, which had been positive, it just deteriorated. Morale apparently tanked.
Which, sadly, often leads to
Layoffs. Widespread layoffs.
And devastatingly, after 35 years of service, Jim himself was let go.
Wow.
At age 58.
Yeah, just cut loose. A profound shock after that level of commitment.
It really is. But the story gets worse, doesn't it? That wasn't the only blow Jim faced.
No, it wasn't. That job loss was terrible. But what makes Jim's story even tougher is what happened next. Shortly after he was terminated, industrial manufacturing declared bankruptcy. And it went through reorganization. And in that process, the company pension fund, the retirement security Jim and all his colleagues were counting on,
Let me guess.
it was completely empty, gone.
Oh my God. That's a double whammy of the absolute worst kind. Lose your job after decades, then find out your retirement savings have just vanished.
Exactly. And Terrence's explanation at the time was just, well, it was a consequence of the bankruptcy. That's it.
Which must have felt like cold comfort. Or worse, like a betrayal.
A deep betrayal of trust, you'd imagine. And the personal financial fallout for Jim was severe.
How bad did it get?
Within about a year, his savings were gone, depleted. Now, luckily, he owned his home outright, so that gave him some stability.
Goodness for that.
But finding a new job, that turned out to be incredibly difficult.
And this part of his story, I think, will resonate with a lot of people listening, even with all that experience.
Right. He's facing these frustrating online job application systems, the black holes where resumes disappear.
Yeah.
The personal connections that used to matter in hiring, they just seemed gone. He couldn't get his foot in the door anywhere, not even for menial jobs.
So a man who helped build a huge corporation.
Yeah.
What did he end up doing?
He resorted to day labor just to survive, make ends meet.
Wow. Day labor.
Yeah. Now, he did manage to access some social safety nets like Medicaid and food stamps, which helped. But it was just such a stark, unexpected fall from the security he thought he'd earned.
It really highlights how precarious things can be, doesn't it? Even after what seems like a long, successful career.
Absolutely.
Good.
Just when things seem absolutely bleakest, the story takes this truly unexpected turn.
Okay.
A chance encounter, it changes everything.
All right, I'm intrigued. What happened?
So Jim's having a really tough day, doing odd jobs, feeling pretty low. He stops at a local bar.
Okay.
And who does he run into? Harry, the former head counsel for industrial manufacturing.
The company lawyer.
Right. And Harry sees Jim maybe looking a bit rough from the day labor and makes some casual comment like, "Wow, Jim must be working on a big project at home, huh?" He just assumed Jim was fine. Assumed Roger had, quote, left Jim well taken care of.
Because of their history.
Exactly. Harry knew how close Jim and Roger were, how valuable Jim was.
So Jim has to tell him the truth.
He does. Lays it all out. No job, no pension, savings gone, relying on food stamps.
And Harry's reaction.
Total disbelief. Just couldn't fathom it. What's really telling is Harry's immediate assumption that Roger would have made sure Jim was okay. It says a lot about Roger's character, or at least Harry's perception of it.
It really does.
Oh.
Okay, so Harry's shocked. Then what?
Then comes the bombshell, the revelation that just completely flips Jim's world upside down.
That one.
Harry tells Jim that Roger had actually put all the patents for Jim's inventions directly in Jim's name over the years, all of them.
Wait, the patents belonged to Jim, not the company.
According to Harry, yes, they were legally Jim's property, and these patents should have been generating significant royalty income for him.
And Jim had no idea. None at all.
Absolutely no idea. He was completely unaware.
That's incredible. Why would Roger do that and not tell him?
That's the crucial part. Harry explains Roger's intention. He did it to secure Jim's financial future, completely separate from the company.
Wow.
Roger had apparently been reinvesting the royalty income from those patents into some kind of profit-sharing plan, specifically for Jim.
Okay.
And he fully intended to tell Jim all about it, lay it all out, but then...
He passed away suddenly.
Yeah.
Before he got the chance.
Exactly. It reveals this incredible foresight and, frankly, generosity from Roger that Jim never knew about.
And it also highlights how critical just talking, communication really is, especially for long-term stuff like this.
Absolutely. And the implications were just staggering. Harry points out something else crucial.
What that?
These patents, even though Jim owned them, were likely licensed to industrial manufacturing.
Right, so the company could use the inventions.
Correct. And those licenses probably needed renewal shortly after Roger died. Harry suggests Terrence must have known about this. He should have contacted Jim.
Because Jim owned the patents.
Right. If Terrence didn't contact Jim and kept using the inventions, the company might have been improperly using Jim's intellectual property without paying him.
Whoa. Okay, that raises some serious questions about what Terrence did or didn't do.
Huge questions. I mean, think about it. Jim, the legal owner of potentially millions in royalties, is doing day labor, while the company, possibly using his patents, is still operating.
Yeah, that sounds really bad. Ethically, maybe legally too.
Big red flags all around. What did Terrence know? Why didn't he tell Jim? Why wasn't Jim getting paid?
So Jim obviously talks more with Harry. They confirm this patent ownership.
Yes, they dig into it, confirm the patents are in Jim's name, confirm the potential for substantial royalties.
So Jim goes from this place of total financial desperation
to realizing he holds these incredibly valuable assets he never even knew existed.
Unbelievable. So naturally, the next step is he confronts Terrence.
He does. He goes to Terrence with this information, this proof of ownership.
And Terrence's reaction.
Well, according to Jim's account, Terrence tried to brush it off. He claimed his father had rolled those patents back into the company.
Rolled them back? What does that even mean? Could you just do that?
Not really, no. Patents are legal rights. They belong to someone or some entity. You can't just informally roll them back. You'd need a formal transfer of ownership documentation.
Right. So Harry confirms Terrence's explanation is basically nonsense.
Total nonsense. Legally speaking, Harry confirms it's impossible.
Which leaves Jim with really only one option, doesn't it?
Pretty much. He has to take legal action. against the company and against Terrence personally.
And this lawsuit, this is where the rest of the story starts to unravel, the full picture of Terrence's management.
Exactly. The judge involved in the case orders a deep dive of forensic accounting of industrial manufacturing's books.
Okay, follow the money.
And the accountants find, well, a shocking pattern. Terrence had been using company funds for all sorts of personal expenses.
Like what?
Most significantly, to cover huge gambling debts. Apparently, he owed money to some, let's just say, questionable individuals.
Oh, wow. So this wasn't just bad leadership.
No, this looked like deliberate misuse of company assets. Fraud, essentially.
So what happened to Terrence legally?
The consequences were severe. He was convicted of fraud, sentenced to 5 years in prison.
5 years.
And his personal assets, which included some previously hidden foreign bank accounts.
Always the hidden accounts.
Right. They were seized. And importantly, a portion of those seized funds was used to provide restitution.
To who?
To the employees, the ones who had lost their pensions when the fund went bust.
Oh, that's actually really good news. Some measure of justice, at least.
A partial measure, yes, but incredibly important for those people affected by Terrence's actions. It's just a stark example of how unchecked power and unethical behavior at the very top can just devastate so many lives below.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But while all this is happening, Jim, he's finding a way forward.
He is, showing incredible resilience, really.
So he's legally got his patents back. He got some portion of the recovered funds after the pension restitution. What does he do?
He decides to start his own company, leverage his knowledge, his experience, and crucially, his own intellectual property.
And he calls it
Phoenix Manufacturing.
Phoenix Manufacturing, rising from the ashes. Very appropriate.
Very. And a key part of this new beginning, Harry, the lawyer who uncovered the patent issue, he joins Phoenix Manufacturing as head counsel. His expertise and, importantly, the trust between them was invaluable.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So with Jim owning the core patents, they could get going quickly.
Very quickly. Plus, Jim's reputation in the industry built over decades. It was solid.
Right. People knew him, trusted him.
Exactly. So many of their old clients, the ones who had left industrial manufacturing under Terrence, they were actually eager to work with Jim again.
That says a lot about the value of integrity and just being good at what you do, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And it wasn't just clients coming back.
Who else?
Any of the skilled, dedicated employees who'd also been laid off from the old company, they jumped at the chance to join Phoenix Manufacturing.
They wanted to work for Jim again?
Drawn by his leadership, the promise of a positive place to work after what they'd been through.
So how did Phoenix Manufacturing do?
Amazingly well. Remarkably, within just 2 years.
Yeah.
Phoenix Manufacturing grew to the same size, the same level of success that industrial manufacturing had reached at its absolute peak under Roger.
Wow. That's incredible. Back to the top.
Back to the top. And the atmosphere, by all accounts, was positive, driven, innovative, a total turnaround from the decline Jim had witnessed before.
It really speaks volumes about leadership, doesn't it? And having the right team.
It really does. But the story has, maybe, one final surprising element.
Oh, what's that? We haven't talked about Terrence recently.
Right, Terrence is still serving his prison sentence. And Jim, in a move that might surprise some people, has stated publicly that when Terrence gets out,
Yes.
there will be a job waiting for him at Phoenix Manufacturing, if Terrence wants it.
A job?
Yeah.
After everything? What kind of job? Like VP of something?
No, not at all. Jim was very specific. A janitorial role, starting right at the very bottom.
Janitor. Wow. Okay. Why offer him anything?
Jim's explanation is interesting. He says it's not really for Terrence, not about forgiving him necessarily. It's more out of respect for Roger.
His old friend.
To his old friend and the history they all shared.
Wow.
It seems like a way for Jim to acknowledge that past, maybe find some closure without excusing what Terrence did. It's complex.
That is complex. This is quite a gesture. Maybe not forgiveness, like you said, but a way to move forward without letting the bitterness just consume you.
Perhaps. Jim's whole story, it just hammers home how unpredictable life can be, right? The importance of focusing on what you can control, making the most of each day.
Yeah, and finding ways to navigate betrayal, even huge betrayals, without letting them completely define your future. He even put a call out, didn't he, for others with similar stories to share.
He did. An invitation for connection there.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Jim Thompson's quite incredible journey, what are the big takeaways for you listening?
Well, first, I think, is that even success that looks rock solid, built over decades, can be surprisingly fragile. things can change fast.
True.
Second, there can be hidden value, unexpected assets or opportunities right under our noses, like Jim's patents. Sometimes you don't even know what we have.
That's a big one. And we definitely saw the huge impact of leadership, both good and bad. Roger's positive influence, Terrence's destructive actions.
And just the complex ways people deal with things like betrayal and how they find a way to move forward. It's not always simple.
And those aha moments around intellectual property, right? Jim was sitting on a gold mine, unknowingly.
Totally. It really underscores how vital it is to understand your rights, the value of what you create, and making sure that stuff is legally buttoned up.
We also saw those unintended consequences, didn't we? Roger's sudden death meant his plan for Jim wasn't fully carried out, leaving Jim vulnerable in a way Roger never intended.
Exactly. That lack of communication, tragically cut short, had massive repercussions.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you to maybe mull over after this. What unseen skills or assets or maybe overlooked aspects might be sitting there in your own life, your own career right now?
Good question. How can you maybe take steps to understand their real value, their potential? Or maybe think about it this way. How might unexpected events, the curveballs life throws, actually reveal hidden truths or open up new paths you never considered?
Yeah. Jim's story is just such a powerful reminder, isn't it? There's often way more going on beneath the surface than what we see at first glance.